These 5 ingredient tortillas are guaranteed to taste better than any store-bought tortilla and impress your friends because you made them homemade. Let's do it. This recipe is super easy. 5 ingredients: flour, salt, baking powder, butter, and water. I like to use a stand mixer because it's just easier, but if you don't have a stand mixer, you can totally do this by hand. It's just gonna take a little bit of a forearm workout as you gotta knead this dough down. So let's add the warm water first, and then we'll add the melted butter. I prefer unsalted butter, specifically Tillamook, not sponsored. Please sponsor me, Tillamook. We're gonna raise our dough hook and we're gonna add in the baking powder, the salt, and we're gonna start adding in the flour. We're not gonna add it all in at once because we wanna mix it kind of nicely and make sure it doesn't all clump up toward the bottom. Sometimes the bottom of your mixer will have a little bit of trouble mixing it throughout. So I'm just gonna start it off here. I'll just start a little faster. And then we'll just start adding that flour in. All right, there's all of our flour added in. Now I'm gonna slow it down to just the stir setting. And we're gonna let that work the dough. If we want to, you can get a spatula to scrape the sides down, but a lot of times it'll pick up that side dough all on its own. Now, depending on where you're making this, sometimes your flour will be really dry and it soaks up a lot of the moisture. Sometimes your flour might be a little more damp from humidity in the air, in which case you might need a little less water or a little more flour. So you just kind of want to play with those ratios a little bit. You don't want the dough super sticky, but you also don't want a really dry dough. So you want it probably a little bit wetter than this is right now. So I'm gonna let it knead for a little bit longer, and then I'll decide if I want to put a little bit of water in it. Yeah, it's looking a little dry to me, so I'm just gonna put just a little bit of water right here on top. It's actually probably pretty close. Now it's gonna slip and slide around a little bit in there. All right, once it starts to look kind of smooth, kind of holding itself together, we're gonna go ahead and pull it out. So we're gonna pull our dough hook off. So off the side, grab a little bit of that flour and dust our work area and drop it out. Maybe, there it is. And then we're just gonna work with our hands a little bit just to make sure it's nice and smooth. So basically you just wanna kind of press it down and fold it over. This is the kneading process. So if you're doing this by hand, once you had it kind of mixed together, you would want to knead it for like 5, maybe even 6 or 7 minutes. But you basically flatten it out, fold it over, push it down with the heel of your hand, turn it, fold it over, push it with the heel of your hand. So that's kind of how you're kneading it by hand. Right now I'm just trying to make sure that we're looking good, nice and smooth. Good stretch to it. It will pull apart a little bit. Those gluten bonds that make it stretchy haven't fully rested. That's one of the things we're gonna do next is we're gonna ball these up into little dough balls to make our tortillas, and we're gonna let them rest for about 30 minutes to 2 hours, depending on how much time you have. You want some kind of container to put them in, and you're also gonna cover them with a damp cloth. I like to use a damp paper towel. This is a proofing box. I use it for bread making, pizza doughs and stuff like that, but really any kind of shallow cookie sheet or something like that will work perfectly fine. For your dough ball size, it depends on how big of a tortilla you wanna make. I'm gonna show you guys my little hack today using a pasta maker with the KitchenAid stand mixer. So I like to do the street taco size, and well, the pasta maker is only like 5 inches wide, so I can't make them any bigger than that. But if you wanna make bigger burrito-sized tortillas, just get out a rolling pin and roll them out on your own. But I like to be accurate. If you don't want to be accurate, you don't have to be, but I like to use this little kitchen scale here to make sure that my measurements, all of my dough balls are exactly the same size. For the street taco size, I do a dough ball that is 25 grams. So I'm gonna weigh it on here. That's way too much, Jeremy. 27. And I love this bench scraper. Works great for cleaning up the work surface, but also for cutting up the dough balls. To make sure they're nice and smooth, what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna kind of ball them up. There's a couple different techniques you can use, but I like to use it where you kind of stretch the outside and then tuck it up under. And what that does, it creates a nice smooth surface on the top. And the way that you kind of roll them out is kind of almost like pushing this bottom edge under it. And I mean, you could do it like this way, but this way you kind of get some weird seams on it and stuff like that. Whereas if you do it this way of kind of like working the top down into the bottom and turning it, what you end up with is a really nice little, basically smooth ball with just a little point here at the bottom that has the seams. And when we rest it, we're gonna rest it with those seams on the bottom. And that's gonna give us a little bit smoother tortilla to work with here in a minute when we actually start rolling them out. Making your own tortillas is a super easy way to impress your friends, for sure. Because there's nothing better than some fresh homemade flour tortillas. And if you wanna have a taco night with some friends, I would encourage you to try making the tortillas on your own, but then maybe buy your marinated meat from like a local Mexican market. In Arizona, we have stores called El Rancho Market, and you can get pollo asado. It's usually called chicken marinada. You can get carne asada, which is usually called carne marinada. And what is actually in those marinades, that carne asada, pollo asado, it varies from place to place. The carne asada that's there at El Rancho Market tastes pretty differently from some other restaurants I get it from, but it's still really tasty. So just be aware that there might be some different flavors, different stuff that's used in the marinade. And if you do want to up your game at some point, you can start making your own. But this, basically making your own tortillas and then just buying the meat, is probably the easiest way to do this, because it's a lot of work. These are gonna be showstoppers, I promise. One year for the day after Thanksgiving, I had my whole family over, and I have a very big family. I think my wife and I together made 180 something of these tortillas, and my family ate them all. I think it was averaging about 10 tortillas per person. So they will definitely blow people's minds a little bit. I'm sure that any traditionalists out there may not love that I'm using butter. Traditionally, these would be made with lard or some other kind of animal fat. And I just like the taste of the butter. That's why I use it. Yeah, so just put on some tunes, get some Apple Music playing, and just grind it out. All right, now that we got all of our dough balls in there and rolled up, we're gonna let them sit for a little while longer. While we're doing that, we're gonna prep our parchment paper, which we'll need to separate all of our tortillas when we roll them out. Now, normally I like to use some little pre-cut squares of parchment paper, usually about 7 inches across is kind of perfect for these street taco size. You can also just use the standard parchment paper that you have. And I'm actually gonna pre-cut a bunch of these so that they're ready to go. And these ones I'm just gonna get 2 next to each other. So, give myself a straight line to start with. And let's double check how many I've got in here. So I have 42 street taco size tortillas. So I need 21 of these cut. That's a lot. Yes, this does have a serrated edge to cut with, but I tend to find I can't get a very good straight cut doing it that way, so I'm just gonna use the scissors. There we go. Okay, we'll set these guys off to the side. This is technically a dough sheeter or pasta. It's meant for pasta making with the KitchenAid. And this same attachment will work on both size KitchenAid mixers. And if you have another brand of mixer, you likely will have attachments available. So in this case, it connects to the front here. Line it up, there it goes right in there. First, I need a nice big pile of flour here. The one thing you wanna make sure when you're using this is you want the outside of the dough to be pretty dry, because otherwise it's gonna stick to the rollers a little bit. I like to just toss a little bit on here. Flour's gonna get everywhere, it's okay, totally worth it. So on this particular attachment, number 1 is the largest gap. We're gonna go from number 1 to number 5. And I've done a bunch of different tests on like what the best way to do this is. And ultimately I start with number 1, and then I'll jump up to number 3. And then I actually do number 5 twice, because you'll notice it kind of stretches it out funky. And we want more of a round tortilla. Take your first dough ball, drop it in the flour, and you're gonna press it flat with your hands, basically covering that thing with flour. Look at that right there. Turn it on. And then number 1, feed it through, catch it with your hand here. See how it's all stretched out like this? We're gonna go to number 3. We're gonna go in sideways like this. That's gonna make it more round. Now this is too thick. If you try to cook this tortilla, it's gonna be super chewy. So we're gonna go to 5. And what I've found is number 5 is kind of like the perfect thickness for these kind of tortillas. And then see how it makes it oblong again. So I'm gonna just stick it in here. The sides don't always fit perfectly. Sometimes it pinches a bit, but there you go. Sit that on there. And get our next one. You can actually get a couple in at once into this flour just to get yourself started. Go back to 1. I'm gonna speed it up a little bit, because it doesn't actually hurt anything to go a little faster. Just gotta be prepared for it. Your first time, I would suggest going a little slower, just till you get the hang of it. But I've kind of lost track how many tortillas I've made by now. We're probably pushing the 1,000 mark at this point. Now to cook these tortillas, you really just need something that's super, super hot. So my recommendation is a Blackstone griddle, which is a propane type grill. I have a big 36-inch one, but you can also get them in smaller, more portable sizes. So if you're in an apartment or something like that, you can just bring it out, put it on your patio at your apartment and cook them up that way. Or you can use an electric pancake griddle inside, though those don't get quite as hot as the propane griddles. It'll still work well. In a pinch, if you don't have any of those options, a cast iron, a skillet, or just some type of normal skillet will work well. Just get it pretty hot and they'll cook best. If it's not hot enough, you'll get a kind of a little more chewy texture out of it and you won't see it puff up as much. And when you start cooking these, they're gonna go fast. You don't need to grease your Blackstone at all. Literally the flour and just the tortilla itself will not stick because it is such a hot surface. And I'm not gonna edit this part at all. I want you guys to see how quickly these tortillas cook up. This one's already ready to go. You see how it kind of dark, or kind of looks more matte finish. Not quite there yet. Beauty of these, you can kind of keep tossing them over and over without an issue, but see how that one looks kind of wet still? Those are looking kind of dry. They're a lot closer to being ready. You really want a little bit of color, like see how they're starting to get browned on that one. And every griddle you ever use, no matter how nice or not it is, it will have some hot spots and some cool spots. So just keep an eye on it. I like to poke the little holes with the corner because you don't want it puffing up too much. But you want a little bit of color. There we go, that one looks actually really, really great. That one looks good too. Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, Those are looking pretty great. This one could use a little more on that side. That one looks pretty good. They're all looking really good, so we're just gonna stack them up. And we'll put them in a warmer. Ooh, still steamy. Grab a couple of those tortillas. Grab some of this filling. All right, let's grab a little bit of this cheese here. Here's my breakfast taco. Let's give it a try. So good. Let's talk about just the tortilla on its own. So we have this really beautiful, nice tender tortilla. Pull it apart. Just really soft. Taste-wise, I mean, there's not much to describe it other than just a really, really good tortilla. Because tortillas don't necessarily taste like something. Hard to describe it. But yeah, it's literally just the best tortilla taste you've ever had. Which is why I eat so many of them and why my family and friends eat so many of them. Well, I hope this video gives you the confidence to impress your friends or impress your belly with some tasty flour tortillas. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.